Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hunter with Rebel Outdoors, everybody's favorite bald beard guy with the big brown truck. And I'm getting ready to pack up for a 2-week trip, so I figured now would be a good opportunity to kind of talk about some points with that and show you what I'm bringing.
Oh man, the lighting's wrong for full flex.
So, when you have a truck like the Moose, sometimes you gotta clear some trails. So this little Milwaukee Well, because I don't think there's a trip that I've been on that I haven't forgot something. What I've been trying to do is print off some kind of a packing list. Now this one is from Overland Journal. The one I usually use is from my buddy Jeremy over at New Holland Overland, which you can find on his website, along with a bunch of other cool stuff. But basically what I'll do with this is I will kind of take the time to highlight all the items that I know I'm going to need on a trip. And then as I'm packing them into the truck, I will go ahead and mark things off. So with that, what are some things you're going to want to bring? Well, for one, you're going to have water. Fortunately, the Skinny Guy camper behind me here has a 38-gallon water tank, and the general rule of thumb is 1 gallon per person per day. So we'll be set for a while, and that is to include, like, you know, hygiene, hydration, all that kind of good stuff. And then next up is going to be food, having some kind of, whether it be a cooler or fridge. Now, I've been using some type of a fridge for a while, and I will never go back to a cooler. They are just so nice not having to deal with all of the soggy foods, the constantly having to buy ice, drain the cooler, things of that sort. So fridge is definitely the way to go. If you don't have one, hey, that's fine too, as long as you get yourself a cooler and get out there. So with a long trip like this, we're probably not going to be doing any crazy off-roading. However, just this morning I ended up replacing the spare on my truck because there was a bolt lodged in the tires when I went to get them rotated, and the dealership found it and said, yeah, we don't want to mess with this. And it wasn't there before that, I know, but you know, it's what it is. But never know where you're going to end up having like a flat, or maybe something falls off your rig or comes undone, a bolt's loose or what have you. So having a proper toolkit is awesome. And I utilize the Milwaukee pack-out system to kind of use as a centrally located tool hub, if you will, for my truck, and I put that in an easy to reach place. And same thing with that, having a good little recovery gear kit is very helpful because you never know when you're gonna need some stuff. And people driving by. So having your recovery gear that is easy to get to, you can kind of see right over there, I do have some traction boards mounted external to the vehicle. That is always the way to go with those, because if you ever had to use them, you will know that they get absolutely caked in mud, sand, snow, whatever it is. And the last thing you want to do is throw that inside your vehicle with all your other clean gear. So mount it externally. And then I also do have all of my recovery gear in a Milwaukee pack-out box on top of my Gerber roof rack. That is easy to get to, easy to take on and off. And kind of with that, the funness that is airing up and airing down, you want to have some kind of, whether it be just a single, one of those like individual valves that you put on each tire, and it's like preset to a certain PSI, and you do that whole number. If you have like a single gauge like I do, you remove the core, let it get down to whatever you need, and then go ahead and move on to the next one. Or if you've got one of those really cool, nice like 4-tire or 2-tire systems, that I really need to get one of those, because doing 40s is not fun. But if you have one of those are an awesome way to both deflate and inflate your tires. Got a bug on me. Now I just kind of, again, along with my obvious Milwaukee tool addiction, have a cordless or a battery powered compressor that has I believe it's a 2-gallon tank on there, and I can pretty much fill that tank up, inflate one of the tires, and then while it recharges, move on to the next one and do that one up to the PSI needed. Gosh, still got a bug on me. And of course, having the adequate hookups and air hose length is really nice with that too. Now, if you do find yourself going somewhere where you're way out in the wilderness, there's possibly bears or other big animals, you're gonna want something to kind of put your trash in and hide it away, if you will. And the trash bags that you can get that kind of mount on like a rear tire are very helpful. I just have some cheap one that I've had for a couple of years now that I got off Amazon. Whatever works, something to kind of get your trash, you know, contained and hopefully somewhat scent proof. I haven't camped in a bear, well, that I know of anyway, but I haven't had any issues with it, so that works out pretty well. And then another item I bring along, especially with having any kind of in-bed camper or rooftop tent, is a set of leveling blocks. Now, one thing you can do is get some like little bubble levels that are either magnetic or are adhesive. Put those on your rig while you know your level and use it. That's kind of what I used to do on the Rebel. The Moose actually does have a system in it where I can tell my pitch and roll, so that is really helpful too for being able to level out the truck. But a set of leveling blocks that you can get at like Walmart is really nice too. And if you don't have one of those big off-road jacks, I have used those to set my factory bottle jack. That's actually what I just did today when I had to swap out my spare because my tire got a hole in it. Now this isn't going to be some like fancy in-depth of meal planning and all of that, because honestly I'm terrible at meal planning. I usually do something easy if it's just me. Or like the dogs, I'll just kind of fill up their stuff and of course share food with them. However, because with this trip in particular, Caitlin and I, we are coming along, so we are having to take into account having a little one with us, which is definitely going to be a challenge for this long. Now, she has been out camping with us before, but for this extended period, it is definitely going to be a fun new challenge. Rob from Revere Overland did just do a really good in-depth video of camping with his little one because he took his son all over the place. Just kind of planning out your meals at least day to day is something nice you can have, so that way when you do go to the store, you know exactly what you need to get, instead of doing what I do and just wandering down the aisles being like, oh yeah, that'll work. So if you are one of those people like me that have a bunch of different battery powered tools, you want to make sure in your little toolkit you have some way to charge those batteries. So with that being the air compressor, my impact, the other items that I take that are also Milwaukee battery powered, you always want to have some type of a charger. I keep like a fast charger that does the M18 and M12s with me, and then when I do have the topper on the truck, there is one built into that. Now, kind of depending on where you're going, you may or may not need a chainsaw. I would say if you are going out somewhere you're unfamiliar with, you're definitely going to want to bring a chainsaw. I have been out places here in Michigan where I'm like, oh, this looks like a fun trail to go on, and next thing you know, I've got like this much room between each of my meters and I'm having to cut down logs and all this chaotic stuff. But they can also be used for cutting down firewood, you know, collecting firewood for fires and all that goodness. But being able to clear the trail with them is very, very handy. Especially if you're going on a convoy, I'd make sure you at least have one. Two's better, but you know, at least make sure somebody has one. And with that, of course, no surprise, I do have a Milwaukee M18 chainsaw I'll be bringing. And of course, batteries. Want to make sure you have a good bit of batteries. I have pretty decent little stockpile of bigger Milwaukee batteries, but like I said, I do have that fast charger that I will be bringing with me. And speaking of fires, sometimes, depending on where you're at, especially seeing that we are going out west, and out west is very known for having burn bans, especially with all the stuff going up in Canada, and that is kind of why we've diverted was going to be Canada trip, doing the Trans-Taiga Highway, into this Wyoming / Colorado BDR / how's where we're going? Oh yeah, Badlands, South Dakota. So if you want to know kind of more details about that, I'll go ahead and put that video above me. But you're going to want to have some kind of a propane fire pit. You can use those while you are in a burn ban area. They are really nice to, you know, just use if it's cold or whatever. You don't got to worry about collecting firewood, don't got to worry about the smoke constantly following you around the campfires. You get your chair and move it to different places, but they're just kind of really nice to have. So going with that, you're going to want to make sure you have a good medical kit. Now, I always have a IFAK in the truck at all times, but I also tend to bring out a little boo-boo kit when I go camping with me, and that is something that I usually keep in the Skinny Guy camper itself, or like in the topper or something like that. That would be just something like Band-Aids, your painkillers, things of that sort. Nothing that would end up being severe, or, you know, again, kind of going back on making sure you know how to use all the different items that you bring with me, and don't just buy the most expensive, coolest thing, throw it in your vehicle and be like, all right, cool, I got this nice stuff, but I have no idea how to use it. So get familiar with your gear. So with that, one thing you're gonna really wanna have is fire extinguishers. And notice how I said fire extinguishers and not a fire extinguisher. You're gonna wanna carry multiple. Now, I have one inside the Skinny Guy. I have a couple in the truck, so that way if there is a fire that whether it be your rig, somebody else's rig, or, you know, whatever the case may be, you have that situation dealt with. And more importantly, you have a backup to that situation, because I've heard testaments from my buddy Scott that having a rig catch on fire is not very fun. Now, depending on how long you want to go out for a trip, hygiene is definitely something you need to take into consideration of. Now, if it's like a weekend or something, you know, chances are you're probably not going to bring a whole shower kit or geyser system, something along those lines, and you know, something like dude wipes would be plenty fine. But with us going out for this extended period, fortunately the Skinny Guy camper does have a shower in it that we can also use outside. We have one of those little pop-up privacy tent things, and we're going to be kind of utilizing that as a shower for this trip. So having all that necessary equipment is good to have when you're on longer trips, or you know, if you're going through towns and you know, perhaps you're staying in a hotel like a night or two throughout your trip at some point, just to do laundry, shower, whatnot, that's fine too. And along with hygiene, you're going to want to have some kind of a way to do the business, take care of your business. And with that, fortunately, it's, again, Skinny Guy camper does have a flushable toilet on board, but having like even one of those little privacy tents with a portable unit is nice to have too, especially if you are bringing your family out. I know it's one thing that a lot of families will kind of prioritize, is having something like that. You know, or if it's just you and you're rough and tough, got a shovel and find a place in the woods, or just dig a hole with your hands and find a place in the woods, whatever works. Just make sure you bring deer wipes, clean up. Now, one of my buddies that I go camping with is notorious for forgetting these, and that would be just something to sit in. Now, you can see in the back of the truck here, I usually do carry 2 different chairs, especially with it being summertime, and the wife and I are usually running all over the place anyway, going to different family events or what have you. And especially now, it's about to be 4th of July here pretty quick, so you want to make sure you have something to sit in, so you're not being that one guy either sitting on a log, the ground, or just standing there awkwardly. Now, this is kind of a dumb one, but I do have a little, go figure, Milwaukee M18 vacuum that I bring with me. It is a dry or wet vac, and typically I bring that when I bring the dogs up, just because the amount of hair that gets like in the tent and everything. It's really nice to be able to clean stuff at like towards the end of a trip. That way you don't got to worry too much about it when you get home, because the last thing you want to do is deep clean your vehicle, you know, when you have to unload and all those kind of fun things. And if you're going somewhere way out in BFE, you're going to want to have some kind of protection, whether it be from 4-legged critters or 2-legged critters. Now again, you have mace, bear spray. I don't really carry any of those things because I carry kind of the more extreme end, me being a 2A advocate. So there are also, I don't know the name of it, but it's like essentially a type of handgun that shoots like paintballs, like rubber balls. You have some of them are like paintballs that have like CS gas in them and pepper spray type gases in them, which are illegal to bring into like national parks and things of that sort. So last thing you want to do is have a bad run with someone or something. Depending on the type of vehicle you have, you might want to have a nice good list of different fluids, oils, spare parts, you know, whatever you think might break down on your rig during a trip. You're probably going to want to bring spares for that. And the biggest thing I would highly recommend is bringing some sort of a spare tire, because especially if you have some oversized off-road tires, they are not exactly the easiest to find in like local tire shops. For example, if you go ahead and end up losing one on the trail, have a total blowout or what have you, a lot of these places are not going to have 40-inch Milestar tires just in stock laying around, you know what I mean? To make sure you bring not only a spare, but some type of tire repair kit. So if you do have a minor inconvenience with a type of flat, you can deal with that instead of just switching out to a spare, and sometimes that's not fun. Also, make sure going back on the tool thing, make sure you have the tools to do all that. Clothes, I mean, that's pretty easy. Pack for the weather, pack for however many days you're going out. And yeah, it's kind of with all these electronics and stuff that some people bring out with them. It is nice to have some type of a portable battery system. I know you can get different kind of battery units, such as like a Rockpals, a Goal Zero Jackery, things of that sort. With the Skinny Guy camper, I do have a Rainergy 100-watt battery on board, as well as a solar panel up top here. So that way it is constantly charging while I'm driving around, and it is charged at camp as well. So that way I can make sure all my electronics are topped off. And of course, you know, some of these newer vehicles have like normal house outlets in them and things of that sort. So that works out pretty well too. But Biggest thing is making sure you have something to power your fridge so you don't spoil all your food or drinks. When it comes down to making food, you want to make sure you have enough cookware or also different things to clean your cookware with, so that way you don't leave all that stuff out and it's nasty, you know, especially if you're staying stationary at a camp for so long. Last thing you want to do is leave out, you know, bits and pieces of food around your table, attracting all kinds of critters. I used to have like a little kitchen bin is what I called it. I had all my different cooking utensils and things like that in it. But again, with the Skinny Guy camper, that does have my kitchen inside of it, so all my items fit in there pretty well. Now, when it comes to your sleeping arrangement, depending if you're doing like a ground tent, rooftop tent, camper, whatever, I always try to make sure, especially if like camper, rooftop tent, I have like my bedding laid out inside the tent, all ready to go, adequate for whatever kind of weather I am going to be dealing with. Now, it is the end of June, about to be beginning of July here that we'll be going on this trip. Actually, Saturday we were leaving on this trip, and it's Thursday as of filming it. So here in like a couple days from me filming this video, if you're watching it in time, yeah, I'll be on this expedition I'm going on. So, but having all that packed away, out of sight, out of mind prior to you leaving, it really, one, helps with space, and then two, it's just convenient. That way you're not having to constantly move things around. Pillows, depending on what kind of like rooftop tent you have, those can be kind of a pain to pack away. Fortunately, with like campers, you usually have tons of different room to do that with, so making sure you have all the proper sleeping equipment is good. If you are sleeping in some kind of a ground tent, it is nice to have some kind of a like mat to lay on, so that way you're not directly on the ground, and it will help insulate you, so if you are camping in colder weather, all the ground doesn't suck the heat right out of you. And if you are camping in colder weather, I would not recommend a memory foam pillow. I have one, I've used it in cold weather, it sucks, it turns into a rock, not fun. So when it comes to heating, if you are camping in the winter months here in Michigan, I do like to go out when it's cold because bugs suck. And with that, typically I just have a negative 20-degree sleeping bag that I use, which works out really well for me, or for me and the dog, things like that. With having the camper, it does have a heater on it, so when we are camping with the little one, you can make sure she's nice and cozy. Another option is like a diesel heater, or I wouldn't recommend like a buddy heater if you have like little ones or animals, stuff like that. But to have up there just to like warm up the tent is a pretty good idea. Are you excited to go on the trip? Yeah? Well, there you have it. Can you say hi to everybody? Can you wave hi? No. Kind of another weird one too, if you have like any kind of special medications, you want to make sure you have ample amount of that for whatever kind of duration of a trip you're going on. Another obvious one is making sure you have enough fuel, or at least knowing all your different fuel stops to where you're not going to run out of fuel, because that sucks. So having some kind of spare fuel on your vehicle is always a good thing. I just use some Scepter NATO cans. A lot of people use the Roto packs, old school jerry cans. Whatever works, doesn't have to be like the coolest, flashiest thing, but just having some kind of extra fuel, even if it's, you know, only 5 gallons, might save you in the long run. Well, and that should be just about everything. I'm sure I forgot something, much like I do whenever I go out on a trip. So if I do, go ahead and leave a comment down below there. Like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube goodness. Hit the little bell notification so you get notified when I post new videos every week, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.